Elliot Anderson has agreed to join Manchester City, according to reports. The deal's done and it's finished. What a major, major statement from Manchester City. Elliot Anderson's signed for them, according to some reports on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. But apparently the deal was done. How does this affect Man United and their midfield battle? Well, it seems like they've missed out on their transfer, which is a good thing. I see it as a good thing because it's not going to be a Frankie de Jong part 2, where they chased Frankie de Jong for months and months and months, and then they ended up getting Casemiro, which was further down the list. I'm not saying Casemiro was a bad target, but we wanted Frankie de Jong. We spent months chasing him, didn't get him, got Casemiro. Do I think Elliot Anderson's going to be a success at Manchester City? I don't know, because it does smell of a Calvin Phillips part 2, because that's what Manchester City do with midfielders. They tend to buy them because they are doing really well, stockpile them, and then leave them to rot. Now, the fee hasn't been announced. It could just be that they've negotiated with the player, got him to agree terms, and then when the transfer market opens, they're going to get the fee done. But I think for Elliot Anderson, you're looking around 50 to 60 million. But for Man City, drop in the water. Elliot Anderson this year, 30 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. Not great, but we know what he can do off the ball is what counts. That's why Manchester United, Liverpool, Man City, Bayern Munich, we're all looking at him. So it's one of those where he's a great player. In the Europa League, he's played 9 games, got 1 assist. So he knows how to play the big games in Europe. Touches in an opposition box in the Premier League, he's got 53. So he knows how to get forward. Is he the right mould of player for Manchester City? I think so, because he can get into the box. He can pop up and he can get a goal. Long passes. I mean, he's such he can whip a pass. We know he can whip a pass. I think 58% of his passes are from long passes. So he can pick a player out. Will he be a success at Manchester City? It depends if Pep Guardiola is still there next year. Because Pep Guardiola does love a midfielder. I mean, he loved Calvin Phillips, and look what he did to him. Completely ruined his career. I don't think Elliot Anderson's the type of player to move for the money. But what you got to look at is, does he get ahead of Rodri or those type of players? But that's what you've got to take into consideration if you're Elliot Anderson, because if you move into Man City, you've got to be starting. You've got to be their number 1 midfielder, like you are at Nottingham Forest, because the type of player that you are having, the season you're having at Nottingham Forest, you've got to be wanting to start every week and not be a bit part player. But with the squad Man City have got, is he going to get in there? I don't know. But with Haaland in front of him, he can feed Haaland, and Haaland probably would score a lot more goals with Elliot Anderson in the midfield, because Rodri tends to drop off a lot more, then get forward a lot more, whereas Elliot Anderson tends to go forward. Are Nottingham Forest making a mistake in letting Elliot Anderson go? Yes. And who are they going to get in to replace him? How does this affect Man United and their transfer plans going forward? Again, like I said, it's a good thing that if this is, obviously, it's everywhere at the minute that the deal was done. It's a good thing that Man United have missed out on, if it's their number one target, that he's gone to Manchester City. Not as a fan point of view, but so we don't, when the transfer market opens, we don't go, right, go for Elliot Anderson. We don't spend all that time sitting there waiting for him. We can look at our number two target, like a Baleba or a Wharton. Whereas for me personally, I take Adam Wharton because I like what he's doing at Crystal Palace. I think he's a much better all-rounded player, and he would suit Man United better than what Elliot Anderson would. Elliot Anderson would get into the Manchester United midfield, because obviously Man United have got Casemiro going. You know, that midfield at Man United needs a major rebuild. And obviously, Bruno's now playing in the 10, and I think with Kobbie Mainoo and Adam Wharton, you're looking at someone that's more of a solid midfield. And if you can bring in a Baleba as well, who's had an alright season at Brighton, considering Man United were declaring their interest pretty early in him, and you know that probably unsettled his season. So that's what I would do. But Man United, being Man United, would still probably go for Elliot Anderson. But that's the news coming out today, that Elliot Anderson has signed for Manchester City. It's a great move for him in his career, on paper. But does it hinder him in the long term? Because you look at the players that Man City have signed, Jack Grealish. You look at the players like Calvin Phillips again. Those two players, completely ruined by Pep Guardiola. And everyone has Pep down as a masterclass when it comes to these players. Because what he'll do is he'll bench him, make him a bit part player, and then eventually their season regresses. So, because when Rodri's fit, Rodri is Manchester City's number one midfielder. And then obviously Man City, you've got players like Foden, you've got players who get ahead of Elliot Anderson, so that he's not going to get in there. But it is a good move for him because it benefits him financially. It shows that he's moved to a bigger club, and he will go on and win things with Manchester City. And again, if Pep Guardiola does leave and a new manager comes in, everything might change. But everything is depending on if Guardiola leaves, is he going to be his number one? What happens with the 115 charges? Whether they take effect, it's all ifs and maybes. But like I said, the big news coming out today: Elliot Anderson signs for Manchester City, and Man United seemingly have missed out on their number one target for their midfield rebuild. If you are liking this content, please click subscribe. Please click like. It does help me out a lot. Much appreciated. And what a move for Elliot Anderson.